Welcome to the Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, CaptainLogun, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, we are going to be jumping into Adventure 7, The Hunter's Cry. It is a really controversial adventure. We're going to be talking about what to do, what to expect, how to get through it, some of the information that we got from it, some of the lore that we can expect in the future, and some of the thoughts and feelings about how it could have been implemented maybe a little bit better. So lots to cover, so let's get into it. But before we get into any of that, I have to thank the patrons because they are the ones that are supporting this episode and making sure that this content is taken care of, that you guys are getting to listen to it, and just overall thanking me for the work that I'm putting into this. So I wanted to thank People's Republic, El Cute, Balls, Bam Bam Bagel, Captain Hasco, Chateau Neuf, Zombie Killer, Cloud, Cosmic Johnson, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Fergatron, Trickster, Jabaro5, Carl Embo, Kazia the Rogue, Lumpy SRQ, Alcarian Darth, Dub Goose, Evil Morpheus, Xbox My 29, Murphy Lives, NX Gamer, Raja the Brave, Regis Stella, Rust Belt Kid, Norwegian, Skinny Matt, Scum Melt 666, Sudesh, Tarnished Film, That Kilted Guy, TN Professor, Real Big Tuna, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, Super Pack, Music Me, The Lore Chronologist Deadeye Dre, Ghost Boy 20, Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, Straw Hat Connor, Thor Von Blitz, Windsor Chris, and Zam. Wow, thank you all so much for your support. It helps me take care of the increased cost to Adobe Cloud apps that I just found out about. It also helps take care of the hosting that I'm doing. It has paid for the equipment that I need, and I appreciate all of the effort that you guys are putting in to help make this easier for me to do. Also, I wanted to talk about the fact that this episode is going to be very spoiler heavy. I'm going to be covering the adventure. I'm going to be talking about the stuff that happens in it, and I'm going to be talking about the rewards that you get, as well as my feelings on it a lot. So if you haven't done the adventure and you don't want to be spoiled, I 100% respect your desire to do that. What I would recommend is putting this podcast on hold till you have an opportunity to jump into the adventure yourself, especially if you don't want to be spoiled. If you haven't seen anything on it and you don't want to miss out on that, consider this your spoiler warning for this episode. I will be talking about everything in full, so hold off, put it on pause, come back afterwards, and we'll kind of see if your feelings and my feelings match up, because I'd love to hear if you agree with me on this, or you think I'm being too harsh or too kind in different areas when it comes to the episode. So let's get into it. So if you don't know, the latest adventure is out now. It is a time-limited adventure for the next couple weeks, and it's called The Hunter's Cry. It's going to be available from August 18th through September 1st, and we are going to be venturing into the Sea of the Damned. I put up a cinematic trailer breakdown of this back on Monday on my YouTube channel if you want to check out that and see what I was wrong about. Turns out I was actually wrong about a few things, and I kind of expected there to be something a little bit different, something that I thought personally would have been pretty cool, but I guess they decided not to go that route. So I wanted to talk about Hunter's Cry and give a little background behind it. So with Merrick's soul being held hostage by the Dark Brethren in the Sea of the Damned, it's up to us, with the aid of the Pirate Lord and the Veil of Ancients, to return to the Sea of the Damned, to confront the forces of the Dark Brethren and rescue Merrick from the twisted version of the Dark Sea Dog, or no, well, Sea Dog Tavern. We'll just go with that. The way you kind of kick this off and the way it kind of works out is you need to go talk to Lorena. Doesn't matter what tavern. She'll send you down to the dock and you'll speak to the Pirate Lord. He'll tell you to get a whole bunch of supplies. That's malarkey. You don't have to worry about supplies. He'll open up the portal to the Sea of the Damned, and this will be the first time, interestingly enough, that he will be opening the portal using the Spire rocks that are at every tavern that were introduced with the Pirate's Life. He's going to be using those, which is kind of, I didn't really see this coming. I thought this was kind of odd. Now that I think about it, it seems odd that we would be opening the portal this way the way that Calypso, the castaway, opened them for a pirate's life. Supposedly, the veil has been an ancient relic, something that was used a long time ago. And I'm curious how they opened up portals to the Sea of the Damned back when they were trying to use this type of artifact, because these rocks were not in Sea of Thieves for the whole time. You know, we haven't had these for a very long time. They just recently came in when Calypso came in. So I don't know that maybe it's just that the pirate lord is using that means to open up the portal because that is the most he's kind of understood how to use it. You think he'd just want to go down to the beach and talk to the castaway and be like, hey, I'm a ghost and you're a god, so how do I use this? Where's the manual? And maybe she just told him it's really simple. You just have to tap 3 little gems on the front, spin it around on the little mask, and the portal opens up. It's super easy. I usually just spit in a jar and then make some stuff up, but you can do that and it's just as effective. So if you don't know, the Veil of Ancients that the pirate legends have been out there rescuing the gems for has been returned to the pirate lord. He has then decided that it would be good to essentially flex seal it to his staff, or not his staff, his walking stick. So now he's tied a very powerful relic with rope to his walking stick, walking around like a really well done up pimp at this point. So he tells you, you kind of have to go down to the Sea of the Damned to rescue Merrick. When you get into the Sea of the Damned, you'll be introduced into a small area that is not too big. It's about the main area of the Sea Dog Tavern, and each of the different little rocks that have some of the smaller docks on them that are normally reserved for the different crews of the Sea Dog Tavern arena crews. Back when you had different ship types and stuff, each little dock had their own little representation. So like the Good Boy and the Lucky Rover, each of those had their own little dock, and it's actually really cool. Those have now been twisted into lighthouse beacons, which for all intents and purposes, it really is kind of funny that it's like it's the reason why you sit there and wonder, like, the Death Star has an exhaust port that is only 3 meters wide that fits a torpedo. Like, they couldn't have made 2 exhaust ports that were half the size, so little torpedoes couldn't get down in there. But it's obviously the Sea Dog Tavern. They've got Merrick held up in the top of the castle, and as you are Super Mario, you need to get to the top of the castle to rescue Princess Merrick. So with the lighthouses, they're going to be guarded, obviously, but before you even get to that, you need to go and destroy some of the ghost ships, and this is part of the deeds as well too. You need to take out at least 3 ghost ships. They're going to be circling around the Sea Dog Tavern. They're galleons, and you just take them out. One of the interesting things that I noticed about them was there seems to be at least one flagship ship, or one flagship, I guess would just be the way that you say it, that has sails. That, if I recall correctly, and I'd have to maybe go back and scrub through the video that I was recording of this when I was doing it the first time, to see like what the emblem was, because the emblem on the front of the sails looks like it is 2 masked strangers. Which I think is kind of interesting, because I can understand one masked stranger as the Warsmith. The Warsmith has never really had iconography until she got the mask, and we started getting some of these like multiple people with masks, which I'm still calling the Maidens of Sorrow. I'm sure that we called something else, but maybe Twisted Sisters. Who knows? But the Sisters of Sorrow. I wanted to call them Sisters of Mercy for some reason. I don't even know why. Maybe it's Twisted Sister. Who knows? Anyway, I'm calling them the Sisters of Sorrow, or Maidens of Sorrow. Maidens of Sorrow. That's what it was. They are on the sails, which I think is interesting because Duke is part of the Dark Brethren. So I'm assuming that the crews that we're fighting are loyal to the Warsmith and not to Duke. And Duke doesn't actually have any kind of persuasion or control over what happens with these phantoms. So that was kind of an interesting thing that I kind of thought about as I was going through this, is that it seems like Duke's just kind of a part of this because he's aligned with the Dark Brethren, And it really is kind of the Warsmith and the other sisters or Maidens of Sorrow to kind of execute on whatever plan it is, because it doesn't really feel like Duke really knows what the plan is. He's obviously kind of along for the ride, but it doesn't seem like he really has a horse in the race, to kind of use a phrase there. So once you defeat the three ghosts, or the three ghost ships, you'll need to head to the different lighthouses. And there's 3 different lighthouses around the Sea Dog Tavern spire. Each of them will have a doorway that will be blocked off. And you have to light beacons using the Flame of Fate that you can find at a beacon, one of the little braziers down on the docks. You use the lantern to get the Flame of Fate, and then you go and light the 2 braziers that are in front of the staircase that's in front of the lighthouse. Once those 2 are lit, there's a green barrier that will dissipate, and then you can scale the top of the lighthouse to light the lighthouse beacon, and then use that lighthouse beacon to be able to light some of the braziers that are over on the Sea Dog Tavern. This is important because when you get to the Sea Dog Tavern, you'll need to be able to scale it, and you can get up most of the way until you get to the part where there is the parkour pathway. That's the best way I can describe it. It's the little path that you have to traverse to go out and around the north side of the actual spire, and then eventually up to the very top of Sea Dog's Tavern. In the real Sea Dog's Tavern, there's just a ladder that you can climb to get up to the very top, where there's a little offices where you can see like the pictures of DeMarco and Lassetti with the daggers in them. That is obviously Amaranta's office. And then, of course, at the very, very tippy top, there's the little spot where they have all the horns to sound the beginning of each arena event back when arena was a thing. So as you finish clearing out each of the different lighthouses and lighting the beacons, and then using the beacons to illuminate the braziers that then reveal the pathway, you then have to get to the actual Sea Dog Tavern. And the Sea Dog Tavern is going to be flooded with ghostly phantoms that are loyal to the Dark Brethren, or at least the Maidens of Sorrow. So once you've kind of done as much as you can to dispatch the phantoms that are there, they are never ending. So you just have to keep moving through or past them. You'll find out that there are a lot of braziers on Sea Dog Tavern that wind your way up to the top where you get to that parkour pathway. Each of those needs to be lit, because at the very entrance to the pathway, there's a capstan. Capstan's new. It's not something that's in the regular Sea Dog Tavern, as this is the twisted version of it, or the what did I call it? The bizarro version of the Sea Dog Tavern. And as you're kind of lighting up the different braziers, eventually, when you get all of them, the capstan will become available. The green barrier surrounding it will dissipate, and you can open up the pathway to get to the actual. You have to lower the bridge essentially to start off the parkour part of it. When you eventually get to the parkour part, you'll have to have people in the lighthouses to be able to move the light to illuminate different beacons to get different parts of that pathway kind of realize, I don't know, kind of appear. They're not there, but when you light the brazier, it makes them appear. I can't think of a really good way to really explain that. So people will move along and eventually get to the very top, where they'll pull up a capstan that will then lower a bridge that will allow other people to kind of like stabilize the path, if you will, to be able to all get up there. And it's really interesting because once you get up there, you'll find Amaranta, the Warsmith, and Duke the Dark Lord standing up on the top of the precipice of the Sea Dog Tavern, with Merrick, his ghost, kneeling down on the ground. And you rescue him, and the Pirate Lord kind of appears in the sea of thing. It's funny because it's always that thing where it's like, if you go and you watch a kids movie, I'm trying to think of a good kids movie. Well, maybe like Lord of the Rings. We'll take Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, Gandalf shows up in the Hobbit, or at the I can't think of what the little Hobbit area is, but he ends up at the little area where the hobbits all live, and he meets up with his old buddy, and his old buddy's about ready to go, but then he passes on the ring to Frodo, and Frodo gets the ring, and he realizes he now has to be sent on this big journey to go destroy the ring in the middle, cast it into the fires of Mordor. And at the very end, when everything's all said and done, Gandalf shows up again with a bunch of eagles to rescue everyone. And you're like, this great, powerful wizard just kind of like, he kind of set me off on this really, really hard journey, and then shows up at the end with very little trouble to rescue me. And that's kind of what this feels like. It feels like you are set forth on this adventure by the Pirate Lord. And then when you get to the very, very end of it and you're just about to confront the bad guys, the Pirate Lord shows up again, seemingly out of nowhere, and is like, it's time. You are going to deal with your crimes. And they're like, not today. And they open up the portal using the gold hoarder's skull on a stick, the metal detector. They open up a portal and they disappear to a different part of the Sea of the Damned, with all in tow except for Merrick. And you rescue Merrick. And then there's a lovely little message between what's it called, between the Pirate Lord and Merrick. And then he's kind of talking to him, and he's like, hey, you know, I've still got this information. They're still going to hunt me. And at this point, I don't know that I can go back to the Sea of Thieves the way I was. Otherwise, it'll put myself as well as my family in danger. I've got family to think about, which is the first time I think I've ever heard him talk about how he's worried about his family. It always seems to be him worried about, killing a megalodon or getting his ship back, or, something going on with the Reaper's bones. But I've never heard him care at all about his family until now. And I'm just like, okay, dude. All right. I get it. You don't want to be out and about collecting fish for the rest of your life. Whatever. You can do what you want. So he excuses himself from returning back to the living and decides that he's going to be hanging out with the Pirate Lord. And the Pirate Lord is like, cool, I'll let you chill at my place until, further notice, until you find your own joint. But then you're going to have to get off my couch. And unfortunately, when you actually go to the Pirate Legend Tavern, he's not there. And I don't know if there's like a waiting time where he's waiting to catch like a spectral bus or something. But I was very disappointed to find out that Merrick is not actually in the Pirate Legend Tavern after the Pirate Lord said, I have to go say hi or meet up with an old friend. And it's like, okay, but where's Merrick? Where did he go? He's not coming back, and the only safe place is going to be at the Pirate Legend Tavern. You said he was going to be at the Pirate Legend Tavern, so where is he? And I do want to say now too, actually, when I went down there, I was wandering around and I got a tip from let me see if I can pull up my messages real quick, because I want to make sure that I give them credit. So Jerkwater Joe on Twitter messaged me and DM'd me about some interesting noises over at the Wardrobe and the Mirror in the Pirate Lord's hideout, as well as over by the spectral band. Yeah, the band. I guess it'd be band. The people playing instruments. And I went over there and I noticed that, because I noticed this a while back, I was trying to figure out like what it was pertaining to. And when I found out that it actually pertains to the mystery, it's something tied to the mystery that I'll talk about later on in this episode. But because of that, I was wondering like what was activating, like when I would hear these little trigger trap door things. So as I was kind of wandering around, I noticed that there is a big portion of the Pirate Legend Tavern that used to be accessible. You used to be able to swim back behind the actual Athena's Fortune ship. You can't now. There's a weird barrier, like an invisible barrier there. So if I had to guess, I would suspect that in the coming future, we will probably have something getting changed in the Pirate Legend Tavern. I imagine it'll probably be tied to the captaincy update that we have right now, and possibly even like leaving our ship or having more customizations down there. I'm kind of hoping that they do something with it. I hope it isn't just a weird thing where they're like, oh, we'll just put some barriers because people are doing stupid stuff. But that whole area seems to have been like changed, and it definitely feels like they're getting to the point where they're going to try and have that moment that they always talked about, where you get to have the ship sail out from underneath the Pirate Legend Tavern, and you go through a portal and it takes you somewhere else out into the world, which has always been a big kind of like Goonies dream, right? We've always wanted something like that in Sea of Thieves. So I'm kind of curious to see where that goes, how that works, why they decided to kind of cordon this area off because it doesn't really make sense otherwise. I don't know why you would put invisible walls in the water area where you used to be able to swim around if you wanted to, but it's a lot less accessible than it is now. So I imagine they're probably working on something with that, which will be cool to kind of see whatever it turns into. And where was I going with that? Okay, so yeah, after you kind of work your way to the top of the tower, you rescue Merrick, everything like that. By the way, there's tons of piles of gold in Amaranth's office. So if you go do it and you've done it a couple times, make sure you head down and get like all the gold, because there's like 15 piles of gold down in the back of the office area next to the actual table that Amaranta used to use for her, for dealing with people, I guess. I don't know, but there's a lot of gold piles in there. And there's also gold piles at the base of the lanterns as well too. One nice thing that I found out about the adventure is that all of the beacons and stuff that need to be lit, all of that is crew based. So it doesn't matter which crew does it in the number of crews that can actually enter into this arena or this adventure. I say arena, it's going to be an arena. That's what people are using it for. That you can actually get some free gold. But after that, it's one of those things where was I going with this? Oh yeah, Merrick tells you that he has one last favor to ask, and that's you need to go and talk to Lorena to get a letter to Sarek, his wife, over at the North Star Seapost. And you go and you deliver the letter, and Merrick basically says his goodbyes. He says, I've lost a lot of things to the Sea of Thieves, but one thing I never lost was my heart, and that's because it belongs to you, which is very touching. And they did a great job of having Merrick's voice kind of go over the actual letter, so that as Sarek is reading, it's reading in his voice and you get to hear it. And it's very touching at the very end. I really thought that was really a beautiful moment. I just didn't think it really meant a whole lot to me, because I've still been kind of like in the mindset of like Merrick still feels like very much a very disconnected member to his family. Like his family members are all spread out across the seas. He never really talks about them. They never really talk about him. Sarek has always been more interested in talking about the business. If you ever talk to her, she's always talking about how hard it is to run a business. So I never really felt that connected to his family. I fell more in love with George and Rose as a couple because of their story than I did with Merrick and Sarek. But it is kind of one of those, they've been together so long that they're in it through thick and thin regardless. And this is kind of like the renewing of their nuptials, even though it's clearly the him saying he's going to be gone, which is very interesting, because if you think about it, I don't know if it's something that's just for pirates. Like I'm very curious who's allowed to become a pirate legend. If people are going to be like, Lorena has turned it down. So clearly NPCs can become pirate legends. So I can't imagine that there are too many NPCs out in the world that if they wanted to could actually become pirate legends. Obviously getting a good reputation in with the rest of the trading companies. And the Hunter's Call seems like the ones that never wanted to operate on the actual outposts, which is why they are all out on the sea posts, which has always been very curious, because if Merrick is to be down in the Pirate Legend Tavern, it seems very odd that there would never be an opportunity for Sarah to go visit him. It's not like when you die, you're gone forever. If you are a ghost and you're welcome in the Pirate Legend Tavern, which funny enough, Hunter's Call leader is going to be taken down into the Pirate Legend Tavern. It seems like there's an exception to the rule here in the sense that he just has a lot of information that's more valuable than his Pirate Legend status. Or maybe he was made an honorary Pirate Legend. We have no clue what the rules are, but Ramsey seems like he can kind of make stuff up as he goes along. But essentially, with this, it seems like there is an opportunity where Sarah could still go visit him if that's where he actually ends up, based on what the Pirate Lord said at the end of the adventure. So really kind of curious just how this is all going to work out. If he does end up down there, I really hope he's hanging out next to Blind Bob, because I think him and Blind Bob would get along very well. It just seems like Blind Bob needs someone to kind of tell his jokes to, and I think Merrick would get a kick out of those jokes. I think that's like right up Merrick's alley, being a dad. So it'd be very curious to kind of see how this all pans out. But As far as lore goes, there's still a very big question in my mind that I can kind of explain away that pertains to the motivations for the Dark Brethren court. Clearly, they have the Gold Hoarder skull, and that is being used currently as a means of teleporting from different areas. But you can still fight the Gold Hoarder. Like, you can still go and fight the Gold Hoarder. So I don't know if the tall tale for the Gold Hoarder is considered locked in time or not, because the pirate lord at the end of that tall tale at Shores of Gold says that the pirate or that the Gold Hoarder will be back. And it seems very odd to me that they would have the Gold Hoarder come back, and he comes back in a different form with the Pirate's Life Tall Tales, where he is more coral based, and it looks like he's been kind of brought back with the help of the sirens. And then after that, he's used again. It says that, you know, they retrieved his skull from the actual siren kind of castle, temple, whatever it is, spire, and they're now using it as a means for him, or for Amaranta, Wanda, and Duke to be able to transport. So how does that work with the lore of him being able to come back because of how powerful he is, with just the greed of gold? You know, the Gold Hoarders continuously turning gold to him. So I'm very curious how that kind of works out now that I think about it. And I kind of feel like I lost my train of thought. I lost a little bit of where I was going with this, but as far as the lore goes, it's interesting. Oh, I remember, I was going off of the motives. Actually, I'm going to take a quick break because I've been talking a bit. Ahoy there, pirates. This is the ad for this episode, and I did want to let you know, if you wanted to avoid these and just get a regular filler, you can head over to the Patreon. There's a special feed just for patrons that get the ad-free version. If you want to keep listening, though, I can't say I blame you, because this week I want to let you know about Loot Crate and getting 15% off of most crates and crate subscriptions when you use the link and code RobotsRadio in the show notes. Also, you can head over to audiobooks.com, get your first 3 audiobooks for free, and that can include any 2 VIP books, or use the affiliate link for Green Man Gaming. If you're a PC gamer or you'd like to save money on games, it's one of the benefits of being a PC gamer. Head over to Green Man Gaming. You can get codes for Steam, Epic, any of the different stores that they have deals going on. They have deals going on all the time, and if you plan on buying there, please consider using our affiliate link. All of that goes straight to me through the network. Thank you all so much for everything that you do to support this podcast. It means the world to me, and I continue to try and improve the quality and content for you. With that, pirates, let's get back to the show. So I think the motives for the Dark Brethren court are still kind of mired in mystery. We know that the captain is intending to get there. We know that Davy Jones was attempting to get the little artifact or trinket that Jack Sparrow had, that a lot of us feel like maybe Tinkerbell was in there. It's hard to know for sure, but that's kind of the working theory right now that allows us to travel wherever we want. And this one obviously lets you open up a big portal to a different area or a location that you want to go to. And I feel like the Veil Stones or the Ancients, Veil of Ancients, is something that would allow them to do that on a bigger, grander scale, as opposed to just the small little bit of travel that seems like they can do with the Gold Hoarder skull. But even then, like, the Gold Hoarder skull has 2 Veil Stones, whereas the Veil of Ancients only has 3. So it's obviously enough to be able to transport multiple people to and from places, but I guess it's not quite powerful enough to open up an entire portal into the Sea of Thieves. So we're still trying to figure out if that's kind of the MO right now. They're looking for a way to get the captain back into the Sea of Thieves, or if they're looking to take troops from the Sea of the Damned. From the Sea of the Damned to the actual, like, Sea of Thieves, and that's how they plan on conquering Sea of Thieves. But that didn't seem to work out for Flameheart. But Flameheart is still very much a big presence with Sea of Thieves. So Maybe it's something to do with the relics that were being used at Golden Sands Outpost that were turning the Golden Sands Outpost into something that was kind of in between realms, something like the Fort of the Damned, where it used to be Old Boot Fort. So there's still really kind of a lot of question about what's going on with the motivations and the desires from all parties at this point. It seems like there's mysteries that we should know that we don't really know about this. And I'm very curious when we're going to find that out, because it feels like right now that with this we're going to be flipping back over to the Flameheart aspect of this. And if that's the case, then we're going to be taking a break from the Dark Brethren court and kind of rounding out the rest of the story from the Flameheart aspect. And I think we'll get into that maybe in the future when we talk about the next upcoming adventure and what it's called, because we did kind of find out what this one is. I feel like I said that this was, did I say that this was the 6th or the 7th? I feel like I said this was the 7th when I think that's actually the 6th, because it's the climax to the second arc, right? Yeah. Okay. If I said it in the past, then hopefully you guys will forgive me. I'm pretty sure it's the 6th at this point. So as we kind of move along, there's been a lot of negative reception for the adventure. I think a lot of folks have been very disappointed with it. I think they feel like the content is light and the lore is light, and they're not quite really happy with how this ended. And I can see where they're coming from, because essentially what Rare has created here, not necessarily intentionally, was a arena. It's a 30-minute event. You're trapped in an instanced version of the game. There's a small amount of area to be able to travel. Respawns are instant. Ships respawn if they're sunk. And there's not really an objective outside of completing the event. And you can only complete the event if everyone's kind of working together. And I kind of spoke about this on Twitter. So I figured I'd read that, because I figured not everyone's going to be on Twitter. And I wanted to kind of share what my initial thoughts about this were as I kind of got done with my first attempt, because the first attempt that I had with it, I recorded it all and I had a pretty good experience. There wasn't really anyone messing with each other. No one was trying to kill each other. We were all trying to work towards the end goal. So this is what I said on Twitter. The latest Sea of Thieves adventure is beautiful in its storytelling and creative. I want to say that that in a perfect situation, it's quite the experience. Unfortunately, not everyone is there to contribute to the perfect experience, and I think that's on us as a community to be kind. I also recognize that PvP is part of the game and as well, and we can do that at any time. So I would ask that for 30 minutes while doing the voyage, we think about the purpose of the adventure and work to quote unquote play our role in the story. Since then, I've had an opportunity to play through the event a couple of times. The first attempt after this tweet came out, I was playing Duo Sloop with Davram from Pirate Talk Radio, and we were attacked by a duo crew who were trying to TDM. They didn't want to sink our ship, and they didn't want to, they just wanted to kill. That's all they wanted to do. And it was very frustrating because we had 2 brigs with us in the rest of the event, and they weren't being bothered. We were just being bothered. And I was trying to give Davram the opportunity to experience the adventure on his own, to work it out on his own, to find out like how you actually had to work through this adventure, because it's a very important thing for him to be able to see how streamlined or how guided the adventure is as you're kind of playing through it. And while he was working on that, I was having to deal with two TDMers who were looking to board my ship and try and kill me. And eventually it got to the point where I can't remember what it was, but they managed to get a silent board. They both came over. I killed one of them and the other one got me. They anchored me, and then they started to TDM me, and eventually got to the point where I had to call Davram back to help kind of clear out my ship. And we ended up sinking. And I was really annoyed by that because we had actually gathered a bunch of supplies, much to the point where we were planning on doing the adventure and then going out and doing the rest of the stuff. So we figured it wasn't a big deal to get supplies beforehand as long as everyone was working out. And I had a really negative experience. It was a very frustrating experience, and I was really annoyed that I couldn't just let him experience the adventure. He was constantly having to deal with the phantoms and the beacons, and then they started to try and kill us, and then I had to deal with 2 boarders constantly coming at me, and they were instant respawning, so it was like it didn't matter. Like, they killed me and I had barely any time to get away from them so that I could actually do that. And in a small arena, there's only so much you can really run around, because not only are you dealing with the crew that's trying to kill you, you're also dealing with the ship galleons that are firing on you. They never end. So I'm constantly sailing around. I'm getting hit by ghost ships. I'm trying to deal with that. I get boarded. Silent boarding, as much as it said that it was gone in the patch notes, is still very much an issue. You can still get silent boarded because I didn't hear the second person come up, and I ended up almost losing the ship. And it was at the point where Davram came back. We were halfway. We had already sailed into the event. We came in there late, and we didn't even get to get the really start of it, honestly. And he came back. We killed the boarders and decided we were just going to cancel the mission. We were just going to cancel the mission, call it off, and then come back and restart it to see like if we could get into a better instance, one that was fresh. So we canceled it. Our ship immediately teleported us out. As we were in the go-between between the Sea of Thieves and the Sea of the Damned, we were able to patch up the last hole, but no other water was pouring in, and we were able to save our ship. But when we came out, it was a realization that it was a very frustrating and annoying situation that we had to deal with. We didn't get to enjoy the adventure. We didn't get to have fun, which was the entire point of going into the adventure, to experience the adventure, to have a moment, to enjoy it. And it was instanced. And that was the thing that I think Rare wanted to try and do, to try and prevent situations like the Shrouded Deep, where people were trying to do the Shrouded Deep, but other crews were present in the server and had free ability to come in and attack you. So while you're trying to work so hard on getting all of the different Megalodon colors with all the little shark plushies over to Merrick's table to be able to do that, and you start it up and you start killing the Shrouded Ghost, and you start getting all the ships coming in from the Sea of the Damned, and they start attacking you, and then a couple of crews come in and they just start wreaking havoc. They just start killing you and sinking it, and before you know it, you've lost out on all of the progress for the adventure, and you've completely lost all of the enjoyment of the last adventure that took so long to work towards, especially if it was in the later half of the 2 weeks where not many people were working on them. And this was very much another situation like that. It was great if everyone was on board, but there was nothing in the game that told you you had to be on board. You were forced to be on board. You could listen to the Pirate Lord say that you have to work together, but there was nothing forcing you to do that. You could do whatever you wanted, and there was nothing preventing you from being able to do that either. So it was really annoying, and we left that. We ended up queuing back up into the adventure, and when we got to the adventure, we were the first ship there. The second ship that appeared ended up being a solo slooper who wanted a TDM. He sailed right over to the Sea Dog Tavern. He dropped anchor, and then he immediately started coming over towards our ship. We proceeded to prevent him from boarding our ship, and he kept saying like he just wanted to come over, and we're like, you don't have to be on our ship to work with us. You can go do your own thing. And he kept wanting to come over. And then eventually, when he realized he wasn't going to have a place to go TDM, he left the adventure. He didn't have to come over to our ship. There's 3 lighthouses. He could have very easily worked on the adventure on his own over on his own lighthouse without ever having to touch our ship. And because of that, he left. And the crews that we got in afterwards, we ended up getting a couple more sloops into that adventure. We ended up having a very good crew. There was multiple crews that were working together. We were not killing each other. We were very, very kind of trepidatious about each of the crews. Like we were like Davram was working on stuff while I stayed on the ship just to kind of keep an eye on what was going on. We put up our alliance flag, and a couple of people joined our alliance, which was a little nicer, felt a little bit safer. Obviously you can still betray people within the alliance, but we still managed to actually get the adventure done. I felt comfortable enough after a while that I could go up into the light towers to be able to move the beacon light so that we could illuminate the pathway around the Sea Dog Tavern spire to be able to get up to the very top. We all got up there at the end there, and then everyone waited, and then we watched through the actual end of the adventure, and it was a great experience. It was a very beautiful experience. It was a lot of fun, but there was nothing stopping anyone except for community members telling other community members, this is not the place. You want it to be the place, but this is not the place. And some people are going to listen and some people are not. And that's where the failing comes in, I think, on the design aspect of this. From what people have said, this is something that was known in the insiders, which is to me a breaking of the NDA, but it's out already. So it's really kind of say like, hey, you shouldn't be talking about this. But if this was something where Rare knew that this was going to be a problem, then I think that there needs to be a hotfix that gets put in. They can control a lot of stuff. You cannot kill a crew member. So there's no friendly fire in Sea of Thieves. Whatever that code is, whatever that switch is, needs to be taken into account when making these types of adventures. If you're going to build a siloed experience where you're putting in multiple crews, then you really need to kind of take a look at some of those things. So I wrote down some stuff on ways that I think this adventure could have been done better. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is a little more direction with this adventure. And what I mean by that is having more of a helping hand. I think this adventure really could have benefited from a character like Pendragon showing up at each of the lighthouses to help guide you to understanding what the mechanics are of this adventure. It would have been very cinematic to have him show up trying to fight off some of the other other phantoms there who are trying to stop you from controlling the lighthouses. To have him call out like, hey, there's a Fate of Flame over there. I need you to get that and light these braziers so you can get up to the top of the lighthouse and control the beacon. That would have been a great little thing to let people know who aren't familiar with these mechanics. Maybe they haven't gone to do all of the tall tales for a pirate's life and they don't understand how that mechanic works or how the lanterns work. There would be a great opportunity to have Pendragon show up as a familiar face to let you know what you have to do in that instance. Now, much of it afterwards was actually not too difficult, but having little things like that just to kind of nudge people in the right direction would have really helped, because the first time that I got in there, I didn't know what to do. And I had to observe someone else who had worked it out or done it before to be able to move forward with the progress of it. And that's when I realized, because I wanted to go in blind. I didn't want to go in with the understanding of what the deeds were and what I needed to check box off. I just wanted to have a pure experience. And as I observed Davram working on this, he had taken a look at some of the deeds, but not all of the deeds are very clear on what you have to do. Some of them are a little obscure, which is fine. So, but I do think that there definitely needs to be a little more guidance with some of this stuff if they're going to set this up, even if it's a voiceover. But I do like the idea of having Pendragon show up the way he has in multiple other ways to kind of be that lending hand. You know, if you go at the very end of Tall Tale 5 for A Pirate's Life, Pendragon is there. He shows up with the crew of the Morning Star and the Black Pearl and helps you kind of take out some of the ships. He even yells at you, like, we'll take care of these ships. You go take care of that spire at the very end, and I think that is something that needs to be continued on, that little helping hand to let people know like when it's okay to do something, when it's time for you to move forward, or how you can move forward with the actual event. So you're not sitting there scratching your head while you're trying not to die to phantoms or worry about people trying to TDM in the middle of this story adventure. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, obviously I kind of mentioned it a little bit ago, was not creating a kill zone. Currently, this is forcing players into this situation in that you opt into this adventure, but not everyone is opting into this adventure to kill each other. A lot of people are opting into this adventure to, I don't know, have an adventure. So it seems crazy to me that something like this is being implemented and not thinking of the worst case scenario. And I think that's always the question there. And there's always there's a phrase that game developers have that it's kind of referenced as the TTD. And if you don't know what that means, then you know what it means. I'm not going to dive into it here on the podcast because of the rating that I have. But devs should be expecting what the worst case scenario is and then design around that. So that's where I think in this situation, and I think a hotfix could probably fix this adventure and maybe even save it, is they need to remove player damage and knockback, not just player damage, because player damage wouldn't solve all of the problems. You have to remove the knockback, and that comes from blunder bombs and cannonballs. I think if you take off the knockback, then especially with the parkour portion of this adventure, which I will say is not accessible to people who have vision impairments or coordination impairments. It's really only designed for people who have good accessibility. Then the portion of that can be disrupted with blunder bombs. If people want to troll each other, they can use blunder bombs to knock people off of those platforms, that parkour section of it. And that's frustrating enough because it's a long fall and a hard way to get back up there. And you're on a time limit. So if they were to go into this adventure, if they were to turn off player damage, and an easy way to do this is just take all the players that are in the game, whether they're part of your crew or not, and put them under an alliance banner that does not allow you to damage other people. So it wouldn't be a white tag. It wouldn't be a purple tag. Everyone would be a green name. Then you wouldn't be able to harm each other. And you wouldn't be able to knock back each other. And maybe you could get away with this just by disabling throwables. Maybe throwables would be a good way to just, you know, if you have throwables, then you can't use them, but you're not going to find them in any of the barrels or any way to actually get them into that little that kind of area. Then you would help try and prevent the issue with the knockback. But removing the knockback, I think, would just be an easy switch, or maybe it's not an easy switch, but it would be a switch that I would investigate turning on so that you can't have people trying to kill each other or disrupt each other. Because once you remove that, then people either get bored and they leave, or they continue through with the actual adventure, because there's only one thing that you can do, and that is the actual goal of the adventure. And that's what this is. You were being asked by the Pirate Lord to go and work together to rescue Merrick. They're not telling you, go see if you can help Merrick or the Dark Brother in court.
Pardons. And now the final crowning touch to this cake. Take about a spoon.
So that brings me to my next kind of idea of how I think this could have been done better. And this is actually thanks to some of the conversations that I had on my Twitter post that actually brought up a really good point, in that there is not an alternative story path for this adventure. If you align yourself with the Dark Brethren, or if you align yourself with Flameheart, you're being asked to experience this adventure, which is the only way to experience it, through the veil or through the eyes of the Pirate Lord's lackeys. And that probably doesn't really hold over too well for people who want to roleplay as Flameheart's stooges or the Dark Brethren's henchmen. And as such, it really does kind of put a sour taste in your mouth. It's like, I don't want to be doing this for the Pirate Lord, so I'm going to take it out on the people who do. And that is allowed in this adventure, but it isn't a path that people can actively take that says, hey, the people that you're showing up with are not going to be your friends because they're representing the other side. There's no way to actually indicate that. So I think that there's a place where you could create a small PvP area that offers players to take a side in the story. Do you want to align yourselves with the Dark Brethren, or do you want to help out the Pirate Lord? And you need to have a matchmaking system so that you could have 2 to 3 crews making up a max player limit, so that you would have a balance of players regardless of ship size. That way everyone that feels comfortable on the ship crew that size that they like can join in, as long as there's not an exceeded amount for the max player limit. And then having options like this would be a great way to give players a way to experience the story from the perspective without feeling like they're going down a path that doesn't want that they don't want to role play as. And I really think that that could be something that they could explore in the future. The other way that I think that this could be done is by making this a single crew adventure. It's hard to say, it's hard to trust that everyone going into this adventure is going to be working towards the same goal, or that they will reach it at the same time. And that's a big problem. It's like, you can go in there, have everyone on board with doing the adventure, but if one person's up there and they talk to Merrick, as far as I know, that ends the adventure for everyone. It's kind of a bummer. I don't know necessarily, because there's not really an indicator about when you go talk to Merrick, if that triggers it for any other person or if it's just for yourself. And I think that's something that is a little it's not conveyed clearly enough. So when you do get up there, if you don't talk to Merrick, you don't know if you're going to screw other people out of this or not. And that's a real shame. It's an earnest shame. It's an earnest issue that I think really should be kind of said, like, if you're going to do this, this is just going to be for your crew. So don't worry about how this will impact the other crews. They'll get to see it in their own time. Because one thing that I did run into in that problem, or in that instance, was that I started it up. I don't know if everyone's up there. And as I started up, it queues up all of the voice dialogue. Now, I don't know if everyone is hearing the same thing I am hearing. They could be hearing it from their perspective. They could be hearing a different thing, but I can't tell because the game doesn't let me know how that works. So when people start talking in game, if I don't have other crews muted, which I shouldn't because I want them to work with me on this kind of thing and I want to communicate with them, it's a good way to try and build trust, then I am constantly having to hear other people talk over the plot, the dialogue, the information that's being tried, or that is trying to be conveyed by the NPCs. And that really destroys the entire kind of atmosphere of it. You know, you're being taken out of the experience because other people don't know that they're interrupting NPCs that they may not have talking on their aspect or their side of it. So it's really tough to know. And I think having an NPC to help you, if you're a solo crew in this instance, would be a great way to kind of finish off this Tall Tale, the same way that they did with Tall Tale 5 of Pirate's Life. If you go do a Tall Tale Pirate's Life, the 5th one, Jack will show up. Jack Sparrow shows up, and it actually help you shoot some of the ships as you're sailing around, take down some of the giant mermaid statues if you're playing solo. And that's a perfect way to not only bring in NPCs to help you combat some of the things that are going on in the game, but also make sure that if you're alone, that you can still complete it alone. And it opens it up to people who don't like to socialize or aren't comfortable socializing, or maybe there's kids that need more help that want to jump in, you know, little teenagers that haven't quite figured out how to play games, or they're not quite comfortable. I say that knowing full well that most kids could trump me in just about every game, but it offers an opportunity for people who are solo or like to solo or want to even just record this for content creation without having other people talking over the dialogue, so it completely destroys the video that you wanted to make. It would be a great experience, a great way to do that, because it's at least something that you can accomplish alone. It's also possible to have it come into the adventure after it's started. So this is another one of those instances where if you did this as a solo crew, then you would start off the adventure on your own. You wouldn't be coming into the middle of it after someone's left, and you wouldn't be missing out on the full experience, because even if you get in and you finish talking to Merrick and the Pirate Lord, there's a good chance that you may be coming in halfway through the actual adventure, at which point you don't get all of the deeds done, which means you just have to start it over again. And at that point, you may have a worse experience than you did in half of the adventure that you just got done, where you did actually get to complete it, and you can't get the last quests or deeds done in this adventure because every other cruise or every other instance after this is filled with crews who just want to disrupt the experience. And that really takes it away. And I'm reading a tweet here. This is actually from Tryhead Monkey, one of the old community members in Sea of Thieves, who had to go through this 11 times just to try and get this done. 11 times. That's 30 minutes a piece. That's at least 5 hours worth of time that he's dedicated to trying to get this adventure done in a time-limited adventure. And not everyone is going to have time to be able to do that. And it's great that the adventure only takes 30 minutes, but it's terrible that it can be disrupted so easily by other players that you're still, even at a 30-minute thing, if you have to do it 11 times at 30 minutes a piece, you're still looking at a lot of time investment to try and get one adventure done. So those were some of the things that I think could have made this adventure great. And I think some of those can still actually be implemented. Some of those things can still be hot fixed so that you can actually make it quicker. Like obviously you can't program in NPCs to be able to help you out. That ship has already sailed. You can't offer a different story pass. That ship has already sailed. And you can't really make it single crew. You could possibly, it depends. It would be hard, but without the other two aspects of the options that I posted or talked about, then it would make it really difficult to be a single crew and get it done in the time frame. But the one thing that you can do, or at least I think you can do, is being able to turn off damage to damage to any crews. If you could do that, and you remove the ability to give players the power to disrupt gameplay, and you remove knockback or at least throwables from people being able to disrupt you from getting where you want to get, then at least you have a stronger chance of completion, even if people are just like, and this is one of the troubles too, is that if people want to be disruptive, say you want to move one of the beacons, they can get on the beacon and you don't have a way to get them off. You can't use blunder bombs, so that kills that as well too. But there's not really always a good way to prevent people from being able to get access to some of the mechanics that you would need to get access to be able to continue through this. If people wanted to delay other people, it would be easy if you were the only person trying to push a capstan up for other people to grab one of the other capstan pegs and pull backwards to lower the capstan to prevent you from finishing being able to raise it. Or they could drop it if they really wanted to as well too. So there are definitely a lot of things that people could do to continue griefing others who are trying to get this adventure done. And I think if you at least turn off damage to other players and knockbacks, then there's a better opportunity that you would be able to see if this would work out or not. See if that would prevent others from disrupting the amount of fun people are having when it comes to playing through this time-limited adventure. One of the things that I did want to touch on is the actual rewards for this. Just by completing the adventure, you actually get 5,000 gold, which is a nice little thing for time. And you get a memento once you complete all of the deeds that is actually a portrait of Merrick. And I really like that. I really thought that it was really kind of cool to get one of those pictures of like one of the characters from Sea of Thieves. And this actually calls back to the loading screen. One of the things that had been missing in the game was this portrait of Merrick that we had seen. I'd seen pretty much everything else in the game outside of foxes and this portrait. And it was cool to see that this was the actual reward, so that if you've been on a captain ship for a while, you may not have some of the really cool paintings or portraits that are available through the milestones. And this is kind of a nice way to kind of spruce up your captainship right off the bat. And I'm glad that they added some of these rewards as like different trinkets to really kind of showcase the different things in the captaincy update. I still really feel like I want myself to get like some portraits that are magically enhanced, that are kind of like the portraits in Harry Potter series. Ones that talk to you, that come to life. And this could be something that is like interactable. Like if you interact with the actual portrait, it comes to life and Merrick talks to you. And it could be just, you know, very simple basic dialogue that he has like on repeat, you know, 3 or 4 lines. But just something like that would be really fun, especially given that you can trap souls within paintings of Pendragon. His soul was trapped in the painting and he was able to be freed via Stitcher Jim. And I think that it would be really kind of fun to have some stuff like that, especially if Merrick is going to continue to be dead. Then it would be kind of interesting to see like how that would work if you could actually put the painting up and then interact with it and he says like a fun line. I think it would even be better if there was like a and this would be kind of a tactical advantage, but obviously if he's like, hey, who's that guy? He doesn't look like part of your crew. Make sure he's not trying to tuck on board your ship. You know, something like that would be really kind of fun, but I see like why that would be a tactical advantage, and people would feel upset if they didn't get this memento, but then it started telling people like when you were trying to get on board your ship. It could be very easily something, one of those like, hey, come over here, I've got something to tell you situations, which is why I think you would want to have it be like on an interact as opposed to just a proximity trigger in the game. But I love the idea of a portrait that actually comes to life. And I think this was definitely one of the best mementos that we've gotten from the different adventures. It's the one that I probably will end up using the most. So if you're not completely satisfied with everything that I've talked about in this episode pertaining to the adventure, there is still even more news that you can actually jump into if you want. Written by Chris Brawler Alcock, the writer of Heart of Fire, which is already out in the UK as of the 16th and coming out on the 23rd in North America. He has written up a beautiful kind of summary of the event for people to dive into. This is over at seaofthieves.com/news/a-hunters cry, and you can read through and actually get a bit of information, a bit of background on the Dark Brethren Court themselves, at least the 3 current members that are there. It also talks about kind of the base that they're at right now and what they're trying to do. How they were able to get to the Sea of the Damned, which I've kind of talked about already with the Gold Hoarder Skull and Trident. And then it talks about the escape, the adventure itself at the very end here. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is the last couple paragraphs of this article, because it really does speak to what I think was the initial goal of this adventure. So I wanted to read Chris's words here. So, though a few grudge-bearing reapers might consider all this to be Merrick's just deserts in reference to him being captured by the Dark Brethren to be actually, you know what? Let's just go with the whole thing. I'll just go with the whole thing in this case. A Merrick-fulless escape. Bell is certain Merrick knows something that can further the Brethren's ambitions, and the race will soon begin to rescue him before Warsmith and her cohorts can coerce the hapless hunter into spilling the beans. Having already orchestrated Merrick's demise once, there's no telling what else she might be capable of doing. Though a few grudge-bearing reapers might consider all of this to be Merrick's just deserts in the wake of the Lost Sands adventure, all pirates will get their chance to set sail for the Sea of the Damned, assail the Twisted Sea Dog Tavern, and work alongside other crews to save him before it's too late. Those who know Merrick of old have almost completed their preparations. The mission to sail into hostile waters in an epic finale to this trilogy of adventures is about to begin. Will pirate courage and tenacity see Merrick freed from the clutches of the Dark Brethren and ferried safely back to his seapost? Find out for yourself when Hunter's Cry launches on August 18th, with your window of heroic opportunity lasting until September 1st. Just don't forget the cannonballs. So really great write-up there, and really does speak to what the intent of this was. And unfortunately, the implementation did not take into account how bad players can be. And the trouble, I think, falls in line is that this is a big game. A lot of people play this game that are not part of the community. And I think a lot of the people that are in the community and share time with each other love to be able to work together to kind of venture out into the rest of the world and discover some of the history, lore, push forward the story, and find out more about the actual characters are invested in that. Whereas a large portion of the community that does play this game are not part of the community that, or I would say the player base, not the community. There's a large portion of the player base that are not in tune with the rest of the community. They don't follow the pirate code. They go and do whatever's fun because it's a video game and they're just trying to have fun, or at least what they consider fun. So it's very interesting to kind of look at the game from these different perspectives and see how people choose to play versus how people choose to engage with the actual content. And I think this is something that we really need to take into account in future adventures. They really need to take a look and see, if they can take at the worst case scenario and plan for that, so that you don't run into instances like this where you're creating an arena essentially without players opting in to go into the PvP. Like there's nothing that says that players will have to, like there's no warning basically saying like you may have to deal with other crews. It's like you're going to have to come up against the other brethren members in the phantoms that have sworn allegiance so that they can get their freedom from the Sea of the Damned. There's nothing that says, hey, you might have to deal with toxic crew members, like really toxic crew members, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that the future of Sea of Thieves is something that we can have adventures where players can experience the story regardless of how you play in the adventure. And that's fine. If you want to have an opportunity to go out and sink people and just constantly go hunting for other crews, that's totally fine. I am 100% behind that, as long as the intent is that you're trying to steal loot or supplies and you end up sinking them. Like for me, it really does come down to you have to sink them. You cannot just constantly camp them on their ship. Because that right there kind of crosses the border for me personally. Everyone has a different line. Everyone's willing to have the line pushed a little bit different in one way or the other for them to consider what's for them to have considered what happens to them or what they do to other people is considered toxic, right? It's a gray area that Rare needs to really define better. So I'm hoping that with this adventure kind of already out there for people to experience, and the experience shown, that they can take a good lesson from the feedback of the community and say, hey, we like this, except for the people that try to ruin it for us, and we can't control them and you can control them. So let's try and build the future adventures in a way that prevents them from being able to disrupt the intent of the actual adventure. All right, pirates, that's going to do it for this episode. Again, sorry for the spoilers in the beginning, and hopefully you guys are listening to this after you've already had an opportunity to jump into the adventure and experience. I hope the experience that you had was good. With the book coming out next week, I will be talking about that when I get a chance to actually finish it. I will be doing a full spoiler coverage of that when I'm done reading, so I can talk about the lore and the history behind Flameheart. I know I have not completed the full spoiler review of Athena's Fortune, and Lorena's story is good, but it's pretty straightforward, where she basically makes it to the Sea of Thieves, finds a crew, sinks a couple other crews, makes her way to the shores of gold, and discovers the gold hoarder before we even knew what the gold hoarder was. So if that could be a bit of a coverage, then maybe that'll cover it. But I do plan on talking about Heart of Fire. I'm very interested to read it. I'm very interested to see how it turns out. I will not get my copy until Tuesday, which is painful, but I will be reading it throughout the week so that I can hopefully have something to talk about in the coming week. But next week is actually going to be the Gold Hoarder episode. It is the last Saturday. It is the last Monday of the month, which means that the Saturday prior is going to be when we're recording for all Gold Hoarders. If you're in the Captain tier, you're brought into the Discord server. We have our recordings. There's an event that you can sign up for. I think there's like 10 or 11 people that are going to be able to make it. So we're going to see how that goes. We're going to see if everyone has an opportunity to really chime in with their feelings on captaincy. I would love to hear some feedback on that. Some of the names that they have for their ships, and how they like the milestones, how they don't like the milestones, things like that. I'd like to get some thoughts and opinions on that. I can kind of guess what people think about the adventure, so I don't know that we want to dive too much into that. But if they want to talk about that, that is definitely their option, because that's the episode for the community. So if you want to join up and get into those episodes, you can as well too. They are just for the patrons, because they're the ones that are supporting me. They're the ones that are putting in their effort to make sure that this content is made for you as you listen through this. So pirates, I think that's going to do it. If you want to get a hold of me, there's plenty of ways to do so. Head over to Twitter at CAPT_LOGUN. LOGUN. Send in an email at CaptainLogun@gmail.com. You can also, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. You can also support the podcast through Patreon, or just sharing the post that you found this on, or liking and subscribing the YouTube version. If you like watching on YouTube, feel free to leave me a comment down there. I've been reading through the comments. Folks have had some really interesting things to say on some of the latest episodes, so really glad to see that. Appreciate that interaction. It's nice to hear from you all. And I think that's it. There's the Xbox wrap up if you want to get some more news for stuff that's going on in the games industry that doesn't pertain to Sea of Thieves in particular. It's basically where I go to talk about everything else that's not Sea of Thieves. And with that, I think that's going to do it. So pirates, thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.
Hey there, my name's Jameson, or Big Cat.
And I am Brenna, or Mother Goose.
And together, we are the hosts of the DL Weekly Gaming News.
Each week, we bring you the top stories from last week, as well as something you might have missed.
Our goal is to start a conversation about what's going on in the world of gaming.
And every week, we have a special guest join us in the chat room, where we discuss a different gamer-related topic and learn more about our guests in the 60-second download.
And if that isn't enough, we also have Slim Jims.
So come and hang out with us every week and join in on the conversation.
Good luck and have fun, everybody.
And remember, keep your goose loose.
Hey Guardians, we are the Destiny Show Podcast, a weekly podcast about all things Destiny 2. We invite amazing guests from the Destiny community to share their stories and discuss the latest topics from the world of Destiny. Check us out on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, or live on Twitch every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will see you Starside.